And troubling developments in a disaster both Anderson and I saw up close. The nuclear catastrophe in Fukushima, Japan. Today's headline, the government recommending more evacuations. Hard to believe, 113 additional households in 4 districts in the city of Date. That's far beyond the mandatory exclusion zone set up for 20 kilometers around the crippled reactors. These are newly designated hotspots. Separately, according to a citizens group and a French NGO, trace amounts of radioisotopes have now been found elsewhere, in children, as far as 24 miles beyond that mandatory evacuation zone. Additionally, this French NGO says it's been long warning that the allowable levels of radiation exposure set up by the government is simply too lax, and that really frames our hypothesis for tonight. This is something Anderson and I and a lot of outside experts noticed almost from day one. Bad news was consistently downplayed and delayed for days, sometimes weeks, by the Japanese government or the plant operator, TEPCO. You'll recall, on the 11th of March, tsunami waves crippled these cooling plants at the Fukushima Daiichi complex. That set off partial meltdowns and explosions in 3 reactors and exposing spent fuel in a 4th. 2 weeks later, March 25th, Greenpeace scientists said they'd collected enough data to judge this disaster a level 7. That's the worst kind possible. Other experts agreed. But it took until April 12th for the Japanese government to call the partial meltdown of 3 nuclear reactors a level 7 disaster. Now, as for people living nearby, the Japanese government waited until April 11th to widen its danger zone beyond 20 kilometers. That's nearly a month after the U.S. government recommended Americans living inside 80 kilometers of the plant either leave or stay indoors. And then there's this.
We think there is a partial meltdown, but that, and as you correctly noted, that doesn't necessarily mean the containment vessel will fail.
That's Energy Secretary Stephen Chu testifying before Congress on March 16th. On April 2nd, he said that, based on high radiation levels, 70% of the number 1 reactor core had been damaged. Secretary Chu, by the way, is a Nobel laureate physicist. Yet the next day after this, Japan's nuclear safety agency said the core damage was only 3%, and it would take until June 6th before Japanese officials would reveal that 3 reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi plant did in fact experience full meltdowns. A day later, the government admitted that the plant spewed out more than twice as much radiation as originally estimated. It's a lot here, and credit for putting together this frankly troubling timeline goes to my colleague in Tokyo, Kyung Law.